Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about k-matchability in anonymized knowledge graphs. Contemporary society is increasingly data-driven. Today, remotely accessible repositories store a growing volume of personal data. Therefore, data publishers must make sure to properly anonymize datasets to protect the privacy of citizens. In the database research community, it was soon realized that simply removing explicit identifiers was not enough to prevent the identification of individuals, because attackers can leverage non-anonymized external database to perform linkage attacks, leading to individual identifications. To prevent this kind of attacks, the k-anonymity privacy model was introduced by Sweeney and Samarati. This model consists in requiring that each database record be indistinguishable from k-1 other database records, therefore hiding the identity of an individual behind k indistinguishable record entries. Nowadays, open data are often represented using RDF graphs, because RDF is part of the semantic web paradigm that excels in representing complex data domains and in connecting diverse sources of information. We consider the problem of hiding individual identities in RDF knowledge graphs and to provide a parallel of k-anonymity in this context. Imagine an hospital as the following knowledge graph containing information about patients and doctors. Before this knowledge graph can be published, we must make sure that patients seen by an oncologist should not be identifiable. So the identities of Bob and Alice must be concealed, and we use blank notes to do so. This is the first attempt at anonymization that only replaces Bob by the blank note B1 and Alice by the blank note B3. Now we ask ourselves if this is enough to obtain a secure anonymization that prevents re-identification. To answer this question, we have to assess the capabilities of the attacker. Specifically, we make the following assumption. We assume that the attacker knows what was the anonymization technique that was used to produce the knowledge graph, and that we also assume that they can obtain non-anonymized pieces of the knowledge graph from external sources. In our case, we assume that the attacker can obtain from external sources the information that Bob was seen by Mary and that Alice was seen by Bob. Given this information, the attacker can make the following deductions. B1 was only seen by Mary, therefore it cannot be Alice, because Alice was also seen by Bob. So the attacker deduces that B3 must be Alice and B1 must be Bob, so this anonymization is not secure. We now try to give a new criterion that prevents re-identification. We start with some definitions. We call subjects the individuals whose identity must be protected, in this case it's Bob and Alice, and matching a plausible way for the attacker, given the background knowledge, to de-anonymize the published knowledge graph. So in order to prevent identification, we must make sure that for no subject, the attacker is able to find a small set of blanks in the published knowledge graph, such that they can confidently say that this set contains a blank that must be de-anonymized to the subject, no matter what matching. Formally, we can say that a published knowledge graph is k-unmatchable with respect to a specific attacker knowledge if there exists no subject C and blanks B1, BK-1 such that each matching de-anonymizes one of B1, BK-1 as C. So, returning to our running example, we can amend our anonymization as follows. As before, we add blanks for Bob and Alice, but we also replace Mary with a blank. This new anonymization is too unmatchable. In fact, given the attacker's background knowledge, now there are two plausible de-anonymization. The first one, as before, de-anonymizes B1 as Bob and B3 as Alice, while the second one de-anonymizes B2 as Bob and B1 as Alice, and both are equally plausible for the attacker, so no subject is identifiable. In our study, we consider three types of anonymization in an increasing level of information loss, and for each of them we consider three decision problems. The first one is checking for the k-matchability of a given anonymization with respect to a knowledge graph. The second one checks whether there exists a k-matchable anonymization of a knowledge graph, while the third one is the decision problem associated to building an optimal k-matchable anonymization that causes minimal information loss. These are the complexity results that we obtained. Finally, we are now working to extend our current framework in the following direction. First, we want to study how to prevent identification when knowledge graphs are paired with ontologies. And second, we want to extend the framework to also prevent attribute linkage, which means that we want to prevent the attacker to associate sensitive information with individuals. Thank you for your attention.